A reclusive billionaire known for keeping his personal life strictly private, accidentally walks into the garden of his massive estate one quiet afternoon and catches sight of something that completely stops him in his tracks. The new maid, who had only been working there for a short time, is gently and patiently teaching his young son, a boy left partially paralyzed after a devastating accident, how to ride a small adapted bicycle again. What unfolds in front of his eyes is so unexpected, so deeply moving, that for several long moments he can't bring himself to say a single word, standing frozen as he realizes this simple act might change his son's life forever. Before we continue with this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Oh, and don't forget to comment below where you're watching us from. We love to know that. Sophia had been working at the mansion for only 3 days when she found herself in the dusty storage room at the back of the property. She was searching for extra cleaning supplies, but her eyes landed on something unexpected, a small red children's bicycle leaning against the wall. Its paint was slightly chipped and the tires had lost some air, but it was still in good condition. She wiped a layer of dust from the seat and smiled faintly, imagining the child who once rode it. From what she had observed, Noah, the young boy of the house, spent most of his time indoors. He moved with difficulty, dragging his legs slightly, and rarely smiled. The other staff members kept their distance from him, speaking only when necessary. Sophia remembered the rules explained by the head butler: do your job, avoid unnecessary interaction, and respect the family's privacy. Still, she felt a quiet curiosity. She decided to take the bicycle outside, checking the wheels and adjusting the seat. Her mind began to form an idea, though she wasn't sure if it was right to go through with it. When she saw Noah later that afternoon, he was sitting in the garden under the shade of a large oak tree, a book resting on his lap. His eyes flicked up when he noticed her, but there was no change in his expression. Sophia walked over, pushing the bicycle gently across the grass. "I found this in the storage room," she said, her voice calm but clear. He looked at it for a moment, then back at her, not saying anything. "Do you want to try it?" she asked, knowing her question went against the silent boundaries of the household. Noah hesitated, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. "I can't," he murmured almost too quietly for her to hear. She crouched down beside him and explained that they could try in a different way. She pointed out how he could use his arms to help push the wheels and rest his feet lightly on the pedals. The boy glanced toward the house as if afraid someone might see, but after a long pause, he gave a small nod. That was enough for Sophia to roll the bike closer. It took several minutes for Noah to position himself on the seat. His legs didn't move easily, so Sophia supported him, adjusting his posture and making sure his feet touched the pedals without strain. "We'll go slow," she said, keeping one hand steady on the handlebars. At first, the bike barely moved. Noah's arms trembled as he gripped the handles, and the pedals made small, awkward turns. Sophia encouraged him to keep going, her voice steady but not forceful. Little by little, the wheels began to roll more smoothly. They moved in a slow circle across the grass, Sophia walking beside him, ready to catch the bike if he lost balance. The boy's breathing grew heavier, but his focus didn't break. His face, usually blank and distant, started to show faint signs of determination. Every small push forward seemed like a victory. They stopped twice so he could rest, and each time he seemed less doubtful about continuing. By the third attempt, Noah had found a rhythm. He pushed with his arms, letting the momentum carry the pedals, and the bike rolled forward more easily. Sophia jogged alongside him, offering balance, but letting him control most of the movement. For the first time, he wasn't looking at the ground. His eyes followed the path ahead, his hair shifted slightly with each movement, and though he didn't say much, his lips curled into a cautious half-smile. They passed the garden bench twice, and each time Sophia noticed the way his shoulders relaxed a little more. He wasn't riding fast, but there was a clear change in the way he sat, as if he was no longer testing the idea, but truly riding. She could feel a quiet pride growing in him, even if he didn't put it into words. Sophia suggested they try a slightly longer loop around the garden. Noah nodded, his confidence visibly higher. They moved toward a smoother section of the path, where the bike could roll without the small bumps of the grass slowing them down. Here, Noah tried pushing the pedals with his legs a little more, just testing the movement. His feet pressed down lightly, and though it wasn't strong, it was enough to help the bike along. Sophia didn't mention it. She simply watched, making sure he felt in control. As they rounded the corner, a soft laugh escaped from him. It was quick, almost as if he hadn't meant for it to slip out, but it was there. Sophia smiled in response, feeling an unspoken connection forming between them. When they returned to where they started, Noah was breathing hard, but his face carried a new lightness. Again she asked. This time, he didn't hesitate. They spent the next 20 minutes riding in short bursts, stopping when Noah needed rest. With each attempt, his hands and arms worked more smoothly, and his legs began to press down just a bit more. Sophia noticed how he seemed to forget the stiffness that usually kept him still. The change in his mood was obvious, his eyes brighter, his voice a little louder when he spoke. The air around them felt different, no longer heavy with silence. For Noah, the bike wasn't just a toy from the past, it had become a way to feel capable again. Sophia didn't think about rules or boundaries anymore. She was focused only on the boy in front of her, the small victories he was claiming with each turn of the pedals. By the time they finished, Noah's cheeks were flushed, and his hair was slightly messy. He climbed off the bike slowly, but there was no trace of reluctance in his movements. For the first time, he looked like he had been part of a game he didn't want to end. Even though Sophia expected to be called into the office and told to leave, she was still at the mansion. The next morning, she had gone to bed thinking someone would complain about what happened with the bicycle, but no one said a word. She woke up early and reported for work as usual, unsure if she should bring up yesterday's activity with Noah. Instead, she focused on her assigned tasks, quietly moving through the halls. Around mid-morning, she saw Noah in the garden. He was looking at the bike, which he had left near the shed. She walked over and asked if he wanted to try again before she started her other duties. His face didn't show much emotion, but he gave a small nod. Without saying anything more, Sophia adjusted the seat and checked the pedals, making sure everything was ready for him. It became a quiet understanding between them. Before she began cleaning or organizing, they would spend a few minutes together with the bike, letting him get in some practice. No one had told her she could do it, but no one had told her to stop either. Day after day, this short morning time became their routine. Sophia would meet him in the garden at almost the same spot, sometimes with the bike already in position. She would help him onto the seat, making sure his feet rested lightly on the pedals and his hands had a firm grip. At first he still relied heavily on his arms, but over time she noticed his legs pushing just a little more. They didn't talk much during these rides. Noah would focus on moving forward, and Sophia would walk or jog beside him, offering support when needed. Sometimes she would count how many times they went around the path just to give him a small goal. Other times she stayed quiet, letting him decide the pace. When the short session ended, he would dismount slowly and she would store the bike back near the shed. This small habit started to feel natural, like it had always been part of the morning, even though it was something they had created in secret. Outside of their bike practice, Noah and Sophia found other small ways to connect. It started with short notes Sophia would leave in places she knew he would find, a folded paper on the garden bench with a simple joke or a small drawing tucked inside one of his books. Noah began to respond, leaving his own notes in return. Sometimes it was a funny doodle, sometimes just a single word that made her laugh. These little exchanges happened quietly, without anyone else noticing. When they were in the garden, they would occasionally toss a ball back and forth or point out odd shapes in the clouds. Nothing they did was loud or dramatic, but each small act seemed to make the other person's day better. The spaces between their words were comfortable, not awkward. Sophia realized that even without constant talking, they understood each other. Noah's changes didn't go unnoticed. Richard, his father, often stood at a distance, watching from the terrace or through a window. He never interrupted or called Noah away, but his gaze stayed fixed on them. Sophia noticed it more than once, the way his expression softened, mixed with curiosity. Before the bike practice began, Noah had spent most mornings indoors, his head bent over books or staring out the window. Now he was outside daily, showing more energy and focus. Richard didn't say anything about it to Sophia, but she could sense he was paying attention. His interest didn't feel like disapproval, but rather a quiet need to understand what was happening between his son and the new employee. Sophia didn't try to explain. She simply kept the routine going, aware that something good was taking shape. even if she couldn't define it. One morning when Sophia arrived at the garden, she found Noah already waiting beside the bike. The seat was slightly crooked and the pedals needed adjusting, but he had tried to prepare it himself. That simple act told her more than words could. They went through the usual steps, and as he rode, she noticed his movements were smoother. His arms still did most of the work, but his legs pushed a little harder with each turn of the pedals. When they stopped, he handed her a folded note. Inside, he had drawn a stick figure on a bike with both legs moving. Underneath, he had written, "Soon." She smiled and tucked it into her pocket, not wanting anyone else to see. Later that day, they played a short game of catch before she returned to her cleaning duties. These moments became small building blocks, each one adding to the unspoken trust between them. Even on days when she felt tired, the routine with Noah gave her a sense of purpose she hadn't expected to find here. By the end of the week, the change in Noah's mood was clear. He smiled more often, even in front of other staff members. His laughter, though still quiet, came more easily. Sophia kept their bike sessions to a few minutes each morning, never pushing him to the point of exhaustion, but making sure he left each ride feeling like he had accomplished something. Outside of these sessions, they still exchanged notes and shared quiet jokes. Sometimes when they passed each other in the hallway, they would exchange a quick nod or a subtle smile that only they understood. Richard's watchful presence continued, but he never interrupted or asked questions. Sophia wondered how long it would take before someone in the house officially noticed the difference in Noah and connected it to her. For now, she was content to let the change happen quietly. The boy who had once seemed so closed off now had a spark in his eyes. And even if it was just from a few minutes each day, that spark felt like the start of something much bigger.